According to findings, humanity emerged in the Paleolithic era. This era corresponds to approximately 2 million years ago. The Stone Age was the longest period in human history. During this period, people's greatest concern was survival. As Homo sapiens, we were not alone on Earth. There were other human species on Earth as well. According to archaeological and anthropological findings, there were many human species other than ours on Earth, such as Neanderthals, Homo floresiensis, Homo erectus, and Homo habilis, but all of them became extinct, except for our species, sapiens. Although we do not have definitive information about their extinction, various theories have been put forward, such as climate changes, our species, Homo sapiens, wiping them out, or their assimilation. Initially, humans attempted to live in forests, but human strength was insufficient for the harsh conditions of the forest.
These desolate forests, which were home to hundreds of wild animals, some still extant and others now extinct, were a major danger to humans. Therefore, people were forced to retreat to rock shelters or caves. In caves, 3 to 5 families typically lived together. Additionally, 75% of natural deaths occurred due to infectious diseases. Modern human metabolism has continued to evolve since that time. Therefore, the metabolism of Stone Age humans was, of course, at a much weaker level than ours. Cave people, who lived in organized and cooperative communities, lived in an egalitarian society. They would make clothing from the skins of the animals they hunted by stretching them with their teeth. In addition, consanguineous marriage was also a common practice. It is a well-known fact that our cave-dwelling ancestors buried their dead. Sometimes they would bury the dead person along with their personal belongings, which clearly indicates that they believed the deceased would be reborn in another universe. According to one view, people who lived a hunter-gatherer lifestyle would heat the meat of the animals they hunted by rubbing it against the animal's bones or a tree trunk, and then eat it. Therefore, they had a broader jaw and sharper teeth. According to another view, human beings acquired the habit of eating meat only after they learned how to make fire. This view claims that humans were vegetarians until they learned how to make fire, and states that they only ate seasonal foods, such as fruits, seeds, leaves, roots, flowers, honey, etc. Actually, according to scientists, humans did not know about fire. The first encounter with fire began when falling lightning caused fires. However, they were unaware of intentionally and consciously starting fires. However, around the middle of the Stone Age, changes began to occur. They had now learned to light fires on their own. Therefore, the most valuable resource of the period was flint. With flint, they not only lit fires, but also made hand axes, cutters, and arrowheads.
This seemingly simple flintstone brought about a revolution in human intellectual creativity. Thanks to these pointed stones, they drew pictures on cave walls. In these pictures, they typically depicted their daily lives and the events around them. By looking at these, we can somewhat understand the conditions under which they lived. During the Stone Age, our planet cooled down in an unprecedented way. Although the exact cause of this cooling is not fully understood today, it is estimated to be due to changes in ocean currents, alterations in the composition of the atmosphere, and shifts in the Earth's position in relation to the sun. With the cooling of the weather, the plant and animal species that served as food sources for humanity began to dwindle. Due to the cold, the oceans also froze. Consequently, rainfall began to decrease. The weather was dry and cold. Human beings' task was harder than ever. These cold temperatures brought about the end of many creatures, especially large mammals. According to some anthropologists, people during this period did not wage war against each other, except for minor conflicts. However, archaeological research has also uncovered examples of the first humans killed by spears. Archaeologists believe that these deaths were not the result of war, but rather due to sacrifice, murder, or hunting. People living in a lifestyle close to tribal life during this period survived by being highly cohesive, and this enabled them to survive.
Especially after this period, gender roles emerged that we still experience today as habits. For men, the primary duty was to participate in mammoth hunting parties to feed their families. For women, the maternal role was the most fundamental duty. While women did not participate in hunting parties with men, they cooked meals, gathered plants, and sewed leather clothing. As I just mentioned, life in the Stone Age was very difficult, and human lifespan was very short. A Stone Age person who could survive to the age of 30 was considered the luckiest person in the world. The last ice age on the planet was coming to an end, and with the warming of the climate, the greatest steps in development began to be taken. The transition from a very cold climate to a milder one enabled the proliferation of animals and plants. Naturally, with this climate change, the physical structure of humans was also changing. Herbivorous animals such as cattle, sheep, and goats emerged. They also began to domesticate some animals. Over time, humans learned to use the land and started producing wheat and barley. The period up to this time constitutes 99% of human history. In addition, it is the least well-known period in terms of time periods. With the transition to agriculture, humanity began to settle down. Their development now occurred at a much faster pace. Humanity now had extensive opportunities in the world and formed herds of small and large livestock. It is estimated that agriculture was first practiced in the Mesopotamian region and later spread throughout the world. In a sense, humanity had now transitioned from a crawling infant to childhood. A small group of people had multiplied and spread across the globe over thousands of years. When humans encountered metals such as copper, bronze, and iron, they began making various products from them, such as ornaments, vases, spoons, and plates. The extraction of resources from these metals greatly facilitated human lives, and the production of goods and tools also accelerated significantly. In this way, their weapons became more powerful and their lives more prosperous. They established regions as settlements and transitioned to urban life there, living in formations numbering in the thousands. Civilizations were now being established, and humanity was making a significant leap forward.
They even built adobe walls and houses for security purposes. However, we encounter interesting cultures during this period. The oldest known temples today emerged during this period. In fact, people were so devoted to their religion that these temples were built with the greatest care. The prevailing belief system in societies at that time was polytheism. The Sumerians, who existed in Mesopotamia during that period, introduced many innovations. However, something they invented would completely change the course of humanity's destiny: writing. With the invention of writing, the Bronze Age came to an end, and the period known as prehistory came to a close. Humanity entered the early ages with more conscious steps. Many civilizations, such as the Sumerians and Hittites, left their mark on this period. With the invention of the alphabet, everything became more modernized, leading to an increase in the standard of living. During this period, the spiritual teacher of Buddhism was also born. These communities needed to be managed more systematically, and therefore political structures were established. Laws began to be enacted to control the social structure. The first known calendar, literature, the primitive chariot, workshops, and mathematics all emerged during this period. Instead of the barter system previously used to acquire goods, money began to be used, and as a result, trade flourished, and people began trading among themselves. Due to this development, slavery emerged as humans competed for power against each other. Status and class differences emerged among people. There were now rich and poor. As civilizations gradually divided into states and borders formed significantly, conflicts increased. Wars, which had previously been relatively minor, now became destructive and deadly. With the widespread use of weapons such as swords, arrows, and spears, people began to desire to rule the world. At that time, in the Middle East, Jesus Christ proclaimed his prophethood, and Christianity was born. The period known as before Christ ended, and the era after Christ began. During this period, warrior empires with large armies, such as the Huns, were established. After the Huns' intense oppression of various tribes, which highlighted their warrior spirit, the migration of peoples took place.
As a result of this migration, many tribes were forced to leave their homelands, and those who went to Europe formed today's Europeans.
After these developments, the ancient era ended and the medieval era began. This era, which had been fruitful for the eastern part of the world, turned into a nightmare for the West. Because the tribes that fled to Europe experienced a collapse with the fall of Western Rome, the West, which had lost much of its productivity in literature, art, science, and culture, was also grappling with population decline. While social structure was in disarray, people were sacrificed to superstitions, and states were governed by harsh rules, virtually at the hands of churches. The Crusader armies were also very popular during this period. Meanwhile, on the Arabian Peninsula, the Prophet Muhammad declared his prophethood, and Islam was born. As the centuries passed, in the East, quite the opposite of the West, tremendous progress was being made. Regarding mathematics and science, the West could not even come close to the East. In the East, academies were centers of learning. Libraries were the world's largest archives. Even Islam was experiencing its most enlightened era. Additionally, during most of the Middle Ages, the Turks assumed the role of conquerors. The Middle Ages, one of the most fascinating periods, witnessed many disasters. With the onset of climatic changes in the late medieval period, agriculture suffered greatly, leading to a rise in famine levels. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives due to hunger. As if famine were not enough, humanity was introduced to one of the deadliest things the world had ever seen.
The social structure also underwent a complete transformation. As a result, the churches lost their former power and rebellions erupted. With the conquest of Istanbul by the Turks in 1453, the Middle Ages ended and the New Age began. Having learned lessons from the Middle Ages, humanity became even more confident. With the beginning of the Renaissance movement, which enabled the development of science, art, and culture, European society made significant progress. Now they had chosen science rather than the church's dictates, and Western states, desiring more from the lands and resources they possessed, began geographical explorations. The Americas were discovered during this period thanks to these discoveries, and this brought about the greatest ambition of humanity: colonialism. Hundreds of thousands of people were taken from Africa as slaves and brought to European lands. The West began to further expand its colonial empires. The Crusader armies gave way to more national armies. Although swords, arrows, and spears continued to be used during this period, there were also innovations that would change the course of warfare. Gunpowder weapons gradually spread throughout the world, and wars now progressed very differently than before. Unlike the Western Middle Ages, this period witnessed a major leap forward through these initiatives, while China and other Eastern states, except for a few, failed to keep pace with this development, and consequently, the Eastern states declined day by day.
Although the Ottoman Empire continued to expand at the beginning of the New Age, it gradually lost its power in subsequent years. Society now embraced a more nationalist outlook. The desire for free thought that erupted in France gave rise to the French Revolution and brought down the monarchy. In its place, more free republics were established. This idea had a major impact worldwide, especially in Europe. With this influence, the New Age came to an end, and the modern age, in which we still live, began. Now the common people began to be considered more important than nobles and kings. Proclamations were published in the name of human rights. With the advent of thought and freedom, ideologies emerged. Then the Industrial Revolution occurred, which is considered a turning point. Alongside human power, the concept of machine power now emerged. While humanity was experiencing a leap in science and technology, electricity was invented. The modern age, which witnessed thousands of sensational inventions such as the telephone, television, electricity, computer, and airplane, also witnessed enormous disasters. This era saw the First and Second World Wars. These wars were the first global wars in world history. Humanity, which didn't even know how to make a spear in its time, began using atomic bombs. Humanity, which was afraid to go into the other forest in its time, went into space. I tried to summarize humanity's adventure on this sphere in the most concise way possible. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel in return for my efforts. Take very, very good care of yourself.